Hi, my name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc. I'm the author of Pancreatic Cancer, Families Move On, and I'm so happy to introduce Aaron Galvin. He's one of the contributors to my first book and my second book. Aaron, thanks so much for being here.
Well, you're welcome very much. So my name is Aaron Galvin, and currently I live full-time in a home in Boynton Beach, Florida. My wife and I bought a home here 40 years ago and rented it out except for a few weeks a year for 10 years. So we weren't really ready to retire or to live in Florida, but we bought the house anyway. And we're successful in renting it out. And we use it for just a few weeks a year for a full 10 years. When my wife and I became Florida residents, we lived in the house for 6 months each year, or 6 months plus a day. And then we lived for 6 months on our additional home that we had on Martha's Vineyard, Florida, which is off of Cape Cod. And eventually we built the Florida experience to full-time. So we gradually transitioned into it. And we were introduced originally in that we bought my wife Freda's parents a home in Florida, which they lived in, and we visited them. So we got to know the place. And back then you could buy a very decent home for $15,000. So it sounds like we did a good deed, but all of course this was $15,000.
Wow, that's amazing, Aaron.
Yeah. So after 51 years of marriage, my wife passed away in 2009 of pancreatic cancer. Several months after that, I was introduced to a woman who had lost her husband at the same time. And I just met her briefly, but then I went away to Martha's Vineyard. So we communicated for 6 months via email. And when I returned, we had our first date and found that we were quite compatible, fortunately. About a year later, she sold her house and we moved in together. Her name is Marsha Vento, and she's a retired registered nurse and has 2 grown daughters in their late 40s and a granddaughter. And fortunately, I'm very, very compatible and love her kids. And I think of them as being bonuses in our relationship. So I got Marsha and her kids.
Wonderful bonus. Great
Yeah.
bonus. So how many years is it that you've been together?
Been together, since late 2009 till now. So that's what, 11 plus years.
Wonderful. Aaron, can you tell me how you got involved with the book?
Okay. Lisa, you and about 20 other people who have lost loved ones to pancreatic cancer were contacted by Lisa. She called me and asked if I was willing or interested in being a contributing author for a book that she was planning on pancreatic cancer. I said that I was. And basically, I was interested in telling people what I went through and showing them that you can get through it. But the first book was largely based on what we went through with the disease. Pancreatic cancer is a terrible disease in that I think like 23,000 people in the US get it every year and 23,000 people die. Not the same ones, but the vast majority of people do die in a short period of time. Well, it turned out she had the pancreatic cancer in the tail of the pancreas, which is the deadliest part because it sends metastases all over the body. Anyway, when she died, I became depressed, and I shortly found that it's a couple's world. Although I was invited to join my friends for dinner, cards, etc., I felt less and less comfortable doing this. There was someone missing my wife. After about 1 year, I got to a point at which I could function normally and my depression dissipated, largely with the help of Marcia. I wanted to have the opportunity to tell others that things got better with time. Although at the time she died, I thought I felt destitute, and I didn't even project that it would get better. It did get better, and all the memories still remain. And I still love her, but I love Masha in a different way. And she's a real focus of my life at this point.
Yes.
My contribution to the book traces the period from when we discovered that my wife had cancer, and its highly likely outcome was going to be that she was going to die. And we knew that right from the beginning. But we handled it a little differently than a lot of other people. Her best friend contracted the same disease at the same time that my wife did. And she decided that she would not treat it because she knew the end result was the same anyway. Turns out she passed away only 3 weeks after she discovered that she had the almost always fatal disease. We instead decided to fight it. We enrolled in a monoclonal antibodies experimental drug program, and it was rewarded with about 1.5 years of relatively quality additional life. So that 1.5 years that we got out of it was very good. She was on chemo infusions for 2 out of every 3 weeks. And she felt relatively good for each 3rd week. So we took advantage of that by being able to travel to many places that we've always wanted to see. Even though she was very sick, she felt okay for that 3rd week. And we did the most traveling of our life during that period, even a few cruises on boats. It definitely was a positive experience, and looking back at it, it amounted to a slow goodbye, which is always better than an unexpected quick goodbye.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
In this book,
Yes.
of course, as family moves on. I know that your family has all been influenced, of course, by her passing. Of course, your new life. Can you talk a little bit about your son and what he is doing as a result?
Yes. Generally, from bad things, there's always some good thing that happened. And my son Jeff, my oldest son, loved his mother very dearly. And while she was sick, he was always thinking, is there some way that he could do something to prevent her leaving us? So he was semi-retired. In fact, he was fully retired. He had started a few startup companies, which did very well. He had good cash position. So we decided to spend time looking into ways of curing people, even though he wasn't a doctor. He was a very adept computer programmer who worked for Apple Computing. But he was introduced to a pioneer in the gene and cell therapy field. And when he learned from this guy what the genes of the body do and how they work, He said, my God, it's the same as software for a computer. It's like you're a big human computer, and each one of your cells has the software it needs to make it all happen. And the amazing thing is the software in every single cell has all the material you need to make a clone of yourself. For a long time, they didn't know how cells differentiate because they start out all being the same. And when they migrate to different parts of the body, they learn how to be a nerve cell, a skin cell, a retinal cell, any other cell, a hair cell. And they learn how to do it. It's basically a director inside of every cell, which points out to the part of the DNA that causes that cell to be differentiated. So it's an amazing thing, but its parallels to software in a computer are hard to miss. And he loved the parallels, and because of it, he very rapidly learned all about it and became an expert in the field of gene and cell therapy. So this was about 11 years ago. We decided to pool our finances and start up a company which we called American Gene and American Gene Technologies. And back in the beginning, it started to grow fairly rapidly. And back in the beginning, it was very hard to get enough financing to run the company. And occasionally I'd get a call from my son, Jeff, saying, Dad, can you reach into your bank account and find another $7,000 so we can meet payroll this month? Anyway, we did go through those lean periods. And he decided to handle it just like software. In other words, instead of going out and just trying to cure diseases, he said, let's put together a platform which contains the software needed to make cures of many, many diseases. So the first few years he spent on making the platform to cure many diseases as opposed to chasing after one disease. Well, after he had the platform built, he needed some tests to see if the platform was going to work. So he chose 3 diseases. First one was HIV/AIDS, which there are, I think, 43 million people in the world that have it. So it'd be worthwhile curing it, even though a lot of the people with AIDS will not die of AIDS. They have miserable lives when they take the antiretroviral medication. And they die of other things like liver cancer because of the toxicity of the drugs. So many people look at HIV/AIDS and say, oh, it's cured already, but it isn't. It's a horrible disease, and the antiretrovirals are very horrible. So he chose that as his first attack. Then he went into a thing called PKU, which is a genetic disease which they find in children when they're first born. They take a sample of blood from the heels of the babies, and one of the major tests that they give on it is a PKU test. And if they have PKU, their brains have already started degrading at birth because they had it before they were born. But if you get to it fast, you can set them up so they're able to take some protein. It's a disease where if the child eats any protein at all, the slightest little bit, it destroys their bodies and their minds.
Mm.
So that's the second disease he chose. The third one is the most important one, which is epithelial cancer. Now, epithelial, when you say epithelial, you think of skin cells, but epithelial cancers are virtually every cancer you have. The most important one of the most important ones is breast cancer. So he went and he attacked that one also. Now, because the company isn't very large, he has to complete the attack of one of these at a time, but he's still working on the other ones. It's just that one is leading the rest. And just a couple of weeks ago, well, in order to cure the blood of a person of AIDS, you're drawing blood from the person and you're curing the blood, and that doesn't require FDA approval because you're not giving anything back to the person. So the FDA controls this very carefully. And Jeff and his company drew blood from many, many people with AIDS and found that they did indeed cure the blood of AIDS. But the thing they were missing is the ability to show that you can cure the person, even though you can't cure their blood. So they wrote a 1,000-page, it's called an IND, which is sent to the FDA, and the FDA has to approve it in order for you to inject back the cure that you have. So the 1,000-page report was done extremely well. It turned out to be a very, very good report. It was given to the FDA, but the problem is the FDA didn't have much knowledge in this field. Mm. So they had trouble judging the quality of the report and whether what Jeff said was right. So after a few months of not approving it, Jeff and his chief scientist went to the FDA and had a face-to-face contact. And that was the turning point. The FDA assigned new people to the program that were knowledgeable in gene and cell therapy. And lo and behold, about a month ago, they got the approval to inject humans with the cure. So the first person will receive the cure in September.
Wow, it's huge.
And the confidence is very, very high. And even if it doesn't work perfectly the first time, they know what to do to it to make sure it works the second time.
Yeah.
So it's exciting stuff. And
amazing. And, for us lay people, just listening to how inspiring this is, and of course this came out of something that was tragedy, is just, says so much for your family and of course for your son and his ambition and drive to do something that makes a difference. Wonderful, just wonderful work. In the end, Aaron, what do you hope that this book will do for people?
Well, they're talking about the second book, right?
That's right.
The second book.
Yes.
I think it'll show that many of the people that went through this did come through the other side and managed to develop another good life for themselves. It's a different life, it's different people, but the thing is, you can love a lot of people. You can love a dog, you can love a flower, you can love your house, you can love your cats, and humans have infinite ability to love, and all loves are different. So the love I had for Freda, who I met when she was 15 years old, and managed to make it through 51 years of married life. Um, the love I had for her was different than the one I have for Masha, but you don't judge one against the other.
Right. That's right.
So I want to make at least one comment that there aren't many people who would be capable of pulling together a book like you with many co-authors. You did an amazing job of getting the contributions on time, which took if it took a cat of nine tails or just a small whip or something, but you managed to get things on time. And the other important thing is you pasted together a lot of diverse information in a smooth flowing way.
Thank you.
Which read like a novel rather than a boring book of history. So I have to congratulate you.
Thank you, Aaron. And I've met such incredible people. I feel like you're all my family. The 20 people from the first book, the 12 people from the second book, honestly. And I've kept in contact with everyone. And having seen you down in Florida was just so special to me and to Stuart. So it's wonderful knowing you, Aaron. It's like a whole new family that I now have. And I feel very blessed and very privileged to first of all that you open up your hearts and your stories and just spent the time to do this, to write each month and to contribute all your thoughts and all. I'm very, very grateful, Aaron, very grateful. And
did I ever send you I wrote a little op-ed type of thing on what it's like to have COVID-19.
You did. You did.
I did. Okay, good.
You did. And I shared that with everyone. And everyone who's listening to this should know this is a very serious disease. And Aaron was very sick with it. And Aaron, we're so grateful that you are alive and you're well. You know, you are older than we all might think. And it's just really a miracle that you are here in one piece and that you're able to go on with your life. And how wonderful. It's great. Wonderful.
Oh,
so, Aaron, I thank you for your time. I wish you all the best. And it's just such a privilege knowing you. And I wish you and Marsha a wonderful life. Great happiness together.
I've been doing a lot of Zoom things lately, but my son Jeff does all of his talks are on Zoom, and he does them from his office. And just recently, a few weeks ago, he was a keynote speaker in England for a talk on gene and cell therapy. Wow. He did it from his office.
Yes, yes.
It was amazing.
Yes.
When he said he was going to be a keynote speaker in England, I said, "Oh my God, you mean you could go on an airplane?" I didn't want him to go. He said, "Oh no, I'm just doing it from my office."
Isn't that amazing? Look what we have now. Technology is amazing. It's like the book behind me, you know. It's all technology, and it's pretty amazing when it works. So anyway, I wish you well and thank you again.
Okay, bye.